Saturday night. Well, it's not even Saturday night, it's 4 p.m. on a Saturday, and this is where I'm going to be for the foreseeable. I'm on my period, it hurts, I'm tired. I can think of a single thing worse than going out. So this is how I'm spending my Saturday, horizontal, in bed, on my own. But I did ask you guys some questions. I haven't even introduced myself. Hello, for anyone new here, I'm Holly. I'm 30, I'm not flirty, and I'm definitely not thriving. That's all I've got to intro for you. I asked some of you guys on Instagram some questions about anxiety, emetephobia, and ADHD. I suppose my trump card. They're my different categories. And you guys delivered. So I thought I'd answer some of your questions while I lie here and rot. So where should we start? Holly, how do I get so gorgeous, interesting, funny, creative? Okay, let's start from the bottom. Did you always know you had ADHD, and when did you get diagnosed? Did I always know? No. Did I always know I was anxious? Yes. Did I always know that I didn't really fit in? Yes. Did I always know that I wasn't getting it the same way other people were? Yes. Did I know that I didn't really fit in, but I was committed to the cause to try and fit in, so I knew that if I put enough time and effort into it, I would eventually fit in? Yes. I knew something was up. I knew something was setting me apart from other people, and not in the way that's like, I'm set apart, I'm not like other girls. Like, I'm set apart and I'm never going to get in. Basically, okay, let me just give you the background. Phobia kicked in when I was around 8. I'm trying to make sure that I talk about everything in a way that won't trigger anyone. So I'm thinking of things that would trigger me, and I'm not going to say that. I know the kind of things that I wouldn't want to hear. It's going to be nothing like that because I wouldn't want to hear it. So I had emetephobia since I was about 8. I've always been anxious. And then when I was at uni, I just always thought I just was a bit like clumsy or a bit forgetful. I thought I was just anxious and not getting it. That was like my two things I diagnosed myself with. I think I basically started off seeing TikToks about ADHD. Oh my God, I thought ADHD was just like hyperactive boys. And I was like, I definitely wasn't hyperactive at school because I was so scared of being told off. But like internally, I was very hyperactive in that I was so anxious being confined into school. So, sorry, I need to make sure I don't waffle on each of these things. That's we're never actually going to get anywhere. Basically, I knew I had ADHD a couple of years ago because then I did the online like diagnostic tool thing. Like I looked up like the criteria and I was like, oh my God, I'm every one of these things. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I actually went to my GP about getting diagnosed on the 4th of January, on the 4th of July 2022, and then I got diagnosed in November 2022. Before that, for about a year or so, I knew it was ADHD, and I just was so sure that I had it, or that I just thought I had anxiety. I was just a bit weird. What was the trickiest part about ADHD when it comes to romantic relationships? Oh my God, this is such a good question. I actually think there is so much that's difficult, particularly when your partner isn't ADHD. Like I'd say Rory is quite neurotypical. And I think the main thing is the guilt. So sometimes, oh, it feels really vulnerable saying this. I'm going to sip my water while I think about how much I would share here. I think sometimes I feel with the whole triple threat of ADHD, anxiety and emetephobia, I feel quite bad with Rory because I feel like he is quite like this most of the time, whereas I am like this. Like I'm either like very like, whoa, or I'm very like, can't talk, sorry, I'm horizontal. And I say things to him and I know it's not true, and I'm like, oh, I feel like you get the worst of me because you get me completely unmasked. But then he's like, yeah, but I love you and that is you, and I'm not with you just for you being like woo. Like sometimes it is quite nice just to sit quietly and watch something, and I'm like, you're so right. But I think the key thing is to understand each other. I do think, like before Rory, I'm getting hot talking about all this. Before Rory, I would always go for people that were very like arrogant and cocky and loud, because that was like my masking character was that. And I also think I love people to like approve of me, and so these people, like to get someone like that to like you, it feels like an achievement. So I'd always go for these people. I would never have been suited to them, right? That would never have worked. Like I look back at some of these people, I'm like, why were you trying to date them? Like you made out to them that you were like party girl, never anxious. When like I met Rory and on our 3rd time that he stayed round, I'm waking him up at 5 a.m, being like, sorry, I'm just having a panic attack, so I'm gonna have to watch David Attenborough on my projector, is that okay? And I'm him just be like, yeah, like, is there anything I can do? And I was like, no, you're fine. And he was like, okay. Then I was like deep breathing and he was just lying there. And I think that was the moment that I was like, I really hope I end up with him forever. You need to be with someone that's compassionate. We are not suited to someone that's just like, haha, whatever. Like you do need someone with a certain level of understanding and patience. And I know it's quite hard to hear. In my experience, that's been true. Also, it's complete open communication. So I go to therapy once a week, and afterwards I always come back and Rory asks me what we talked about and I tell him, and it means that he kind of gets understanding as well. He knows where my head's at. Sorry, Love Island. I've been watching too much Love Island. He knows what I'm thinking about, and he also knows what my therapist is suggesting. So he kind of knows what to say to me in those situations. I also think understanding that no one is 100% the same as you. Like me and Rory aren't 100% the same is very normal. Also, I think with ADHD, like when you're together for a long time, it's like you're so used to wanting this, like, is it on, is it off, like what's going on? But actually, when you're very comfortable in a relationship, it's very calm. Love is very, very calm and very comfortable and very nice and very like cozy is how I describe it. And I think sometimes an ADHD brain will make problems because they're like, this is going too smoothly, something bad has to happen, but it actually doesn't. Also, another thing I'd say is my thoughts just before I go to bed are always quite like sad, and I'm always like, oh, what if one day Rory wakes up and doesn't love me? Do not trust any of those thoughts that happen at like 11 p.m. Your brain is tired. You've probably been at work all day. You've been masking all day. You've been managing, trying to survive in a neurotypical world. Before sleep is when your brain has run out of energy to fight those intrusive thoughts, those catastrophic thoughts, those overthinking thoughts. Just go to sleep. Like if you really want to worry about whether your boyfriend still loves you, I just say to myself, brain, if you're still worried about this at 11 a.m. tomorrow, we'll think about it, but we're not thinking about it tonight. Good night. And quite often when I wake up, my brain's over it. When and how did you find out about your ADHD diagnosis? You're amazing, I love you. I always think it's so funny when creators read out like people being like, you're so beautiful and gorgeous, love you, and like say it in like such a like normal voice like that, me being like, you're amazing, I love you. Like, shut up, Holly. Thank you very much, it's very kind. So let me give you my timeline. I also was already going to a therapist for my anxiety, and she was a bit like, I think it could be ADHD, babe. So that's where I looked up that like questionnaire, and I looked at some other like documents, and I was like, yes, this sounds like me. I watched some YouTube videos on it, and then I went to my GP and I went to her with right to choose. Now you can Google this, but sorry, did that sound really passive, being like, you can Google it? I didn't mean that, but I mean, if I'm not describing it very well, and I don't take verbal directions very well, and if you're like that as well, Google it. Right to choose basically means you can choose amongst a certain amount of like providers who's going to do your ADHD diagnosis. If you use certain different providers, they can be a bit quicker sometimes. I used Psychiatry UK. So basically I went to my GP with a filled in, printed off, I was like, look at this, babe, questionnaire that I'd filled in to show that I was like very high scoring on ADHD. I actually got 9 out of 9 for one of the bits. Not to show off. I then emailed I've got a document on this, I'll have it in the description. I then emailed my GP when I left that doctor's appointment, and I said, hi, please can you forward my ADHD referral to Dr. whatever my doctor was called, so I can apply for a diagnosis. Additionally, Dr. whatever their name was, this is the document about right to choose to hopefully help me fast track a little. Oh, because my doctor didn't know what that was. Then I said, thanks, put my name, put my date of birth, put my phone number. Then I went to that doctor's appointment on the 4th of July. Then I got an email from Psychiatry on the 25th of August, the next month, filling some medical forms. Then I got an email about an appointment on the 3rd of November. Then I got an appointment to actually get my diagnosis the next day. So the next day I had an hour and a half call, which is where I got the diagnosis. And then I got an email the next day saying I was on the waiting list for medication. And then I got an email a couple of months later on the portal saying my medication was ready, but I got, and I couldn't ever get around to actually answering it. So then I got referred back to my GP and I missed the slot to get the medication. That was good. Like, the process isn't actually, funnily, very ADHD friendly, because obviously I'm going to forget that, or I'm not going to be able to get the willpower to like go through with it. But I don't think I would have taken the medication anyway, so whatever, it's happened now. Sorry, that was so long-winded. Next question, that kind of ties in. Do you take meds for ADHD? What's your journey like? There's been no journey, unfortunately, because as I said, I fell at the first hurdle and I didn't actually remember I missed the window of being able to cut the prescription, or whatever the window was. Whatever the window was, I wasn't looking in it, I wasn't getting it, it wasn't going to work for me. I don't take any medication. I think if I was still in my old job, I would have done. But basically, I think I'm very lucky that this is my job in content creation and I can make my own schedule. And I think that's helped me a lot. I can make my own schedule. All of like social things I found really hard with being in an agency, I now don't have, because I'm technically my boss. So I don't have someone else that like I'm not gelling with, or I don't have the stress of the agency I was in. I think basically agency life for me and my kind of ADHD wasn't suitable, and if I had to stay in that world, I might have taken it to help with like emotional regulation and managing tasks within that 9 to 5 window and stuff. Whereas now, because I'm self-employed, like I know I work really well from 6:45 to 11 a.m, so I try and block out most of my work then, and then in the evening, and I'm a bit easier with some of my like middle of the day time. I think I would have got medicated if I had to live in a normal world 9 to 5 like realm of trying to focus and stuff, but because I don't, I manage my ADHD to an extent with therapy and with having flexibility, which I know is a complete privilege and luxury, but I actually don't manage it very well because I do get overwhelmed quite a lot. Another thing to add to the situation is I'm thinking about trying to look into getting a diagnosis for autism because I also feel like I have a lot of those traits. Please don't take this as verbatim, but I don't know whether ADHD medication can help someone that's actually has also got autism, because I don't know. So I'm going to see about the autism, and then after I've found that out, then maybe I would look into medication. I know so many people have taken medication that's changed their lives, and my doctor before I moved house was like, ADHD medication can literally change people's lives. But I think right now I'm managing things, so I don't need my life to be changed right now. So I'm just riding the highs and holding on tight on the lows. Emetophobia, panic attacks, tips for eating in restaurants, please, as they're where my anxiety skyrockets. Emetophobia tips. So my emetophobia, I feel like, is far more under control now that I understand myself a bit better. I understand now that my emetophobia is normally triggered by stress, and in my head I can now rationalise on myself to an extent, because I'm like it'd be a massive coincidence if I was just going to be ill every time that I was really anxious or life was really stressful. And it can also be like little things can trigger me. So say I've had too much socialising and stuff, I don't have the space in my brain to like stop the intrusive thoughts that then lead to me feeling physical feelings. So what I found with my emetophobia to help with panic attacks and stuff, and I don't get them as much now, is, touch wood, I really rationalise, and at the end of a panic attack that I've had about emetophobia, I really try and like go through it. I'm trying to think of something else that you similarly do this with. You know, after a football match they all go into like the changing room and they all discuss what went well and what didn't, right? I basically try and do that with my mind, and I imagine my mind like inside out, like all the little characters. So after a panic attack regarding emetophobia, we all sit together in my mind, like me that's quite rational, me that's really emetophobic, me that's really OCD, my ADHD. This must sound so ridiculous, but this is how my brain works. We all sit together and we go through what happened, and we're like, so why do we think that emetophobia and panic attack was triggered? Oh, was it because of something else that happened that day? Was it because of this? Was it because of that? I then also go through the physical symptoms I felt. So I sometimes get bubbles in my throat, gurgly, or I get this really weird, I don't know if anyone else gets this. Sometimes, like after a meal, if I've drank some water, I feel like if I move over and stuff, sometimes I feel like I can hear the liquid in my stomach, and that really freaks me out. So basically I'm just like really high vigilant on my body. None of them ever lead to anything. So what I do after the panic attack is I go through all those symptoms that I've had, and I'm like, I know how real they felt, Holly, but they were all anxiety. And understanding that your stomach is like so influenced by anxiety, and really drumming into my head, Holly, this has happened so many times before and you were fine. It means in the moments I can calm myself down a bit better. I also find I don't sit with it for too long, so I will play Sims if I can feel I'm panicking, or like just watching something isn't going to help. A puzzle, that can be really helpful. If I was in a restaurant, I say to myself, this panic attack feels worse because I feel trapped, and I say to myself, and this is what I say to my friends as well, you can leave anything when you want to. So if I'm in the restaurant and I can feel I'm getting a bit panicky, I say to myself, you can leave, that's fine. And then it sometimes weirdly does calm me down. If you've had a high stress day, maybe going to a restaurant that day just is going to be the best thing for you. I'm just compassionate with myself, because when you're not and you're like, oh, why are you doing this right now? That's when it gets worse. Next, how do you cope with changing jobs with anxiety and ADHD? Well, if any of you have seen anything about me, you'll know that I am a serial job quitter. So I quit jobs in 2 years because I cannot stick at something if it makes me miserable. I don't mean this in like, all of you are staying in your jobs that you hate, but not me, I'm so courageous to leave. I just mean so many of those jobs, I just like got so annoyed one day and just quit, like with no warning. So like one of my jobs, my boss was just, me and him clashed a little bit. We went into a meeting at like 10 a.m, just my like weekly catch up on how things are going, and I was just something like, I'm so underappreciated here, and he was like, how's it going? And I actually can't help being so honest. Like I really struggle to be professional and be like, going so well, to overshare and stuff. And I just went straight in. It was like my mouth was moving before my brain could function. And I went, it's not going well, and I'm handing in my notice. And he was like, what? And even I was like, are we handing in our notice? Basically, I was a creative strategist. That was my job. And I put my heart and soul and I didn't put my arse into it. Yeah, I did. No, put your back, that's it. I put my back into it. Quite a few campaigns that had gone live that I'd won, and I really had to say to myself, if these people aren't going to believe in you, you have to believe in you. And I kind of knew that in my industry then, there wasn't a load of creative strategists, so you were quite likely to be able to then find another job. Also, when I quit all these jobs, I normally had something else lined up because I made a real effort to make sure that I was being creative on my own channels. I was sharing my work, that I was posting on LinkedIn, that when I was meeting with clients, I was going above and beyond. Like, I would just send brands other ideas that I was working with. I also like really trained up all the skills that were necessary. So like, I knew that some of my ideas, I wasn't a very good like person to write the ideas out. So I learned Photoshop. And because of that, I believed in myself. I built up quite a good like portfolio, and it then meant that when I quit my job, well, I believed in myself that I'd be able to find something else. I also did a lot of freelance stuff on the side of my full-time stuff so that I would never be at zero. When I quit my job to do this full time, I had actually been putting some money aside for a few months so that I would be able to cover my mortgage and stuff. And I gave myself 2 months to be able to be successful at this job and earn, not what I was earning at that job, but earn enough that I could afford my life. I gave myself 2 months of money to do that, and if I didn't make it by then, my idea was I would work in like a part-time job at like a supermarket or a coffee shop, and then I'd have the part-time money and my money that I make from being a content creator to then go forward. So I didn't feel the anxiety because I felt more anxiety being stuck somewhere that I didn't want to be. It was like my anxiety and my ADHD, like they kind of sometimes can be quite, they're sometimes an awful pairing, but they can sometimes be quite good, because when something is so anxiety inducing that I'm crying before work, it's like the ADHD part of my mind is like, Holly, can't stay like this, we need action. And so my ADHD brain is like, we're going to quit and we're going to make it work and you're not going to be crying anymore. And then I go and do it. I don't know if it's good advice, but I've always been quite a bit of a risk taker, but like calculated risks. I knew I had a few prospective leads in the works before I would quit a job, or I knew I had a few freelance clients before quitting a job, or I knew I'd saved before I quit a job, which I was very privileged to be able to do. I think I'm not a good person for this because I was never anxious about quitting jobs, because once you'd quit a few, you kind of got used to it, and I got used to starting somewhere new. And weirdly with the ADHD, I always thrived in like the first 3 months because it was novel, and then I would die out. So I don't know if I'm the best person to answer for that. Each job I was getting closer to what I wanted to do, so I felt quite good about it. What's your experience of PMS and hormonal changes in relation to ADHD? I actually am wondering about this. Basically, the only ones that I definitely know about are that 4 days before my period, I will cry over absolutely anything. I'm just in a pit of doom. And the week before, I'm just very emotional. And then the couple of days before, I am very emotional. And sometimes I feel like I want a child. Like I only seem to want this child like a couple of days before my period, and then that feeling goes. But I am actually now I've got this Aura ring to track my cycle, and I've got natural cycles that I'm just using to track my cycle and my symptoms. I'm not using it as contraception. I am very intrigued. I'm going to every day put in my emotions and see how they change, because I think my emotions might be weird around my ovulation as well. It's really hard when you've got anxiety as well, because I'm like, am I just anxious? Is it my PMS? Is it my lifestyle? Like, what is it? I'm looking into that, and hopefully I can update you about that. I've been diagnosed and wondering what your top coping method is. I don't know which one you've been diagnosed with, because I've obviously got my nice little 3 there, but I presume it's ADHD, and my top coping method is to really research it, to really try and understand yourself, be compassionate with yourself, and understand things are going to change, because you're going to be aware of masking, so you're not going to want to mask. Like, it's almost like I feel like I've regressed as like a person since being diagnosed, but it's actually because I'm actually meeting my needs, and as much as I'm not socialising as much, or I'm not saying yes to as many things, or I'm noticing my burnout quicker, I'm avoiding more panic attacks, I'm avoiding more conflict. I call it like the ADHD like hangovers, where being exhausted afterwards, and I don't do the same things I did before. Like I think before, like I'd always like drink to like try and self-medicate, when actually I just shouldn't have been in that situation. Like I would go to the pub like 3 times a week, so I just thought that's what you did, and I would be drinking there, and then I'd be hungover the next day. But now I look back at all that, and I'm like, I was drinking because I found socialising quite hard and quite exhausting, so I was numbing it when I was there, but I just wanted to fit in, when actually now I don't do that. And I say to my friends more like, do you want to meet for a coffee or meet for a dinner? Like I like things with a smaller time frame. Now everyone wins. What helps you with concentration? I'm going back into education. I'm worried I can't focus on anything. Concentration for me is understanding myself. So like I said, I know that I concentrate better in the morning. I love that I'm getting more and more horizontal. I know my window of concentration is quite small. I also concentrate more when there's not the pressure to. So I work better weirdly on Sundays. So I normally do quite a bit of work on a Sunday. My Mondays either. I even used to do that in my old job. So I would do quite a lot of work on a Sunday so that the Monday wouldn't be as hard. But then I was obviously like just committing my whole life to my job, which was stupid. Doing small amounts, also like treating myself. This is so stupid, but I'd treat myself to like a boring productive task once I'd got something done. So I'd say to myself, you can't put that washing on until you've written that treatment or done that essay or whatever, and that kind of works because you do get dopamine from the things like doing a wash or emptying the dishwasher, because our brains love that we've ticked something off. I would basically like withhold something like that until I'd done the job I needed to do. Sorry, I feel like I'm going on. How do you cope with burnout? I really don't. This is something I'm trying to learn. I feel so grateful this is my job, like being a creator, that I feel like someone's always about to take it away from me, or I feel like I'm not going to be relevant, or I'm not funny enough, or I'm not interesting enough. I get worried that's going to happen. And so because of that, I try and put every hour of the day into making content, or to come up with new content ideas, or to be replying. And I've realised that's actually burning me out. But it's really hard because I feel so grateful that it feels ungrateful to ever take my finger off the pulse. But something I'm realising, and I've been reading a book on it, and it's called 4,000 Weeks. If you're just productive all the time, like if you get so obsessed, like I'm going to clear my inbox, you're just going to get more emails back. Like if I'm just like, I'm going to work really hard and get this done so I can get on to the next thing, I'm going to be in a constant, like productivity isn't really real. Like if you're constantly productive, when are you ever enjoying it? What I'm learning to do now is actually take time off. So like I'm doing a thing at the minute where I'm trying to called Silent Saturdays, where I don't post anything, really go on WhatsApp or DMs or anything, to give myself some time off. I also need to stop. I think another thing is, particularly with ADHD, like we reach a goal and we think that's going to make us happy, and it doesn't, and then we keep making the goal higher and higher. And I've learned that that's what I'm going to be like. There's no point me being like, I'm going to calm down when, because at the minute I'm saving for our next house and I'm obsessed with it, and I'm obsessed with wanting to move. But I'm like, you think all your brain is going to be relaxed when that happens, and it's not. Like I was sure when I became a creator, oh my God, how could I ever be sad or overwhelmed again, like this is the dream? But it doesn't work like that, annoyingly. So basically, first thing is, look at the plans you've got. Is it realistic? I now know I can either do weekend plans or in the week plans. I can't do it all. Be honest with people. Look at your week. Is that going to burn you out? Are you going to have to cancel those plans at the weekend? Get that done early so you don't then have guilt on top of it, which makes burnout even worse. Find things that relax you. So mine is my Nintendo Switch, Stardew Valley, or doing a puzzle. I also find going for a quick walk is really helpful. It breaks the circuit switch of like worrying about something. Basically control what you can control. Don't stop the things that you love. So I love tennis, and I really try to at least play once a week, even when I'm burnt out. And I think I'm too tired, but weirdly, sporting activities or exercise does help with the burnout. This is an interesting one. Do you find making and maintaining friendships hard? Yes. I find friendships really tricky, and it's so odd. Basically, I think when I was, oh my God, this video's gonna be so long, I'm so sorry. When I was in like year 6 and early secondary school, I was bullied, not like badly, but I wasn't popular, I wasn't cool. And I think it was because I was being my true, like, unmasking self, and I was not, like, I think when you go to school, and I went to an all-girls school, everyone tries to fit in. So if someone's odd, you're not celebrated for being odd, you're being like, weirdo, go away. That was that. Anyway, so then what I did is I kind of watched all the cool kids at school and the popular kids and how they behaved, how they dressed, what they talked about, and I just like mimicked them. And I did it so well that I actually got in the popular group. And then I loved that feeling of being popular, because it was like that's all I ever wanted to be, because I'd never been it. And then I got obsessed with it. I think even at uni then, I adapted to what my people at uni were like. And I just basically did that again in my 20s as well, and I did that with dating. And I spent most of my teen years in my 20s trying to be something I wasn't. And because of that, I attracted a lot of people that I'm actually not very well suited to, not compatible with. I was only compatible with these people because I was being what I knew they wanted me to be, but that wasn't really me. And then when I started to change, naturally these people are going to be like, what? This isn't what I signed up for, which is actually completely fair enough. And so then there's a friendship breakdown. Yeah, I think my friendships have changed quite a lot over the years. And I found with my friends, I've had to like soft launch what I'm actually like. And in that soft launch, you do lose some people, but then you also become like so incredibly close to other people, which has been lovely. I think another thing I do quite a lot with friends is I jump in too quickly. And I think I did this with dating as well. Like I like new shiny objects. They'd be like a new person. And I'm like, oh, let's be best friends. We're so similar. And now I look back, I'm like, we weren't similar. You just are really good at making people feel comfortable. And then I was like, oh my God, they're asking too much of me. And then I'm panicking. So I was like, no, wait, sorry, I didn't mean to make this like really close friendship. I think sometimes because I'm an oversharer, things move quicker than they should. And I don't actually give time to think like, oh, are we actually suitable to each other? But I'm very lucky that within the friendships that I've got, all these people are so lovely. So now a lot of Rory's friends are some of my absolute best friends, and they are just some of the nicest, most fun, most understanding, kind, funny, interesting, like engaging people to be around. So I'm very lucky with that. From school, really good friends that we've known each other throughout all the years. So that's lovely that we have like all the background on each other, which I absolutely love. And then I've got like 3 like best friends as well. Know me entirely inside out. I love them so much. Yeah, I think the only thing I struggle with a bit is my social battery and how much time I can give to all of them, because I kind of want to give them everything, and it's just not realistic to give them everything and also give my job everything. I think I've never had a job where I've given my all to it, so it's really odd to have done that. Oh my god, sorry, that's so long-winded. But yeah, I do find friendships hard, and I think it's mainly due to masking. And have found that since I've stopped masking, I have lost friends, but the friends that I've got now, I don't have any situations that make me feel uncomfortable, or I don't feel the need to people please. My inability for anyone to have any kind of uncomfortable feeling meant that I would overcompensate, and then I'd feel resentful. But then they probably weren't even asking me to do that, but I was just doing it because I was like, I need to solve everyone's problem. Friendships are really hard, I think, particularly with like ADHD and potentially autism, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. ADHD, when it comes to friendships, do you find you morph to suit who you're with? Yeah, I do. I feel like I am a different person depending on who I'm with and who I'm around, but I feel like I'm less now with the friends I've got. Do you feel like your brain needs to do so many different things in life and it's overwhelming? Yes. So these are my things. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. I really want to start my t-shirt business, but I've currently put a shitload of ink into my really expensive printer that I just bought to start this t-shirt business, and the ink is not for printing on fabric. So I've got to tip my printer upside down somewhere, and empty it all out. So that's good. I also really, should I say this? I've got an idea of a product that I want to launch as well. And it's within the food and drink category. And it's a market that I feel very passionately about, that I think doesn't have that many good options. I also really want to do Hot Girl Hobbies. I want to do live events for Hot Girl Hobbies where we can all do like a Zumba class together or a tennis lesson together. I'm thinking of doing a Zumba instructing course. I'd love to be a Zumba instructor. I basically want to do everything under the sun, and none of it's possible. And because of that, I end up just sitting in bed playing Sims because it's all overwhelming. I also want to do a podcast, probably 50 people are going to listen to, and 100% of them are going to be my family and friends. Do I see a therapist for my emetephobia? Has it helped? How do you cope with it? Basically, my emetephobia is just a product of my ADHD and anxiety. Actually, the fear is of being out of control. I've been seeing different therapists for emetephobia for over like 10 years now. Sometimes in your own head, like our thoughts are so discombobulated, we can't unravel them nicely. And I find with my therapist, all my thoughts in my head are like in like loads of different knots. And I go there and she helps me like kind of string them out. And then when they're strung out, I can look at them more logically. So yeah, I would suggest that. But that also feels very privileged to be like, yeah, everyone should get a therapist, because I understand it's so expensive and it's a lot of sacrifice. How do I manage my emetephobia? It's got better over the years, again, through therapy and through kind of having to really comfort that scared side of me, but also push back a bit on it. I think the only way with emetephobia, the more you give into it, the worse it gets. The more you keep going, the quieter the voice gets. And I know that sounds really hard when you're absolutely in the thick of it, but it's small challenges and each time you'll feel a bit better. And understanding how things are going to affect me. For instance, like if I see someone posting on social media about something about being ill, and I hate people that do that, I'm like, why have you done that? You've ruined my day. I then think to myself, I know my brain's going to be on like high alert today, so I'm probably going to feel ill at some point today because of that. So understanding my triggers and stuff means that it's less scary when I feel it, because I don't imagine it's going to happen, because I know it's triggered by something. I know it's triggered by an anxious thought. Do I suffer with health anxiety? Yes, but there's nothing I'm challenging. I am really bad at Googling things. I always diagnose myself with a new illness, particularly again if I'm stressed. But I spoke to my therapist about this, and she was like, when you go online, like, do you stop when you find good news? And I'm like, no, I carry on until like I just keep going. And she was like, so what your brain's looking for is someone to calm it down, but your brain doesn't stop when you get that. Like it keeps looking. So what is the point in looking? And I'm like, you're so right. I also, if I see like videos on TikTok about things that scare me, I just scroll past, or I do that thing where I click and say I don't like it. If you have health anxiety, do not watch those videos about someone that's ill, someone that's being diagnosed. They are never ever going to make you feel better, I promise you, okay? They're not. Also, on social media makes you think that the chance of having things is so much higher than they actually are. Not to say if there is something that genuinely is worrying, like go and get it checked by a GP, but I'm saying from a health anxiety perspective, because I'm diagnosed, I could have my toenail look a bit longer than my other toenail, and I've diagnosed I'm going to die in 3 hours. Best things you learned about anxiety in therapy. So one of my therapists once was like, sometimes with a thought, you can just picture it as your brain is like the Sahara Desert, and just let the thought cross past it. So like, say my anxious thought is, oh my God, what if Rory doesn't love me anymore? I imagine that's like a camel. So I imagine that I'm sticking this sticky note with that thought on this camel in this desert in my brain. And rather than engaging in it, I just look at that thought and I let it cross all the way through my brain to the other side and walk off. I don't know if that'll work for everyone, but that works for me. The thing about don't trust my late night thoughts, just go to sleep. Something with ADHD is we're very good storytellers, but the problem is we don't know when to stop. And so when I worry about something, my brain spirals. So quite often I worry about people getting older, me getting older and stuff, but those stories aren't helpful. Like, you can't do anything about that. So what I imagine is I've opened this book and my brain's telling this horrible story before I go to sleep, which is really upsetting me. And so what I do is I close the book. So before I go to sleep, I'm like, oh look, I'm telling another horrible story. Close the book in my head and then I go to sleep. I find visualizing these things really helps me. And also putting it on the later base. So saying to myself, look, if you really want to worry about this, we can factor in worrying time at 11 a.m. tomorrow. And quite often I won't get around to it. I don't want to anymore. So they're probably my main bits of advice. How do you find a therapist that's right for you? I've been to loads. Basically, I think normally you can do the first session for half price or free, but I just tried out loads of different ones and saw who I thought I gelled with. People like different therapists. Like, I like a therapist to be quite a lot older because I feel like they've been through all the stages of life, so they've got that. Even though I'm sure that makes no difference to how qualified they are whatsoever, I wouldn't really gel, I don't think, with someone that was like my age. I think I would be too busy trying to impress them or trying to be like their mate. And some of my friends have ones our age and find them more useful. I've just stopped being so reactive with ADHD. I don't think I think before I speak, and I snap. See, I snap when I'm overwhelmed, but I think it's all about communication. So I'll say to her, I'm really overwhelmed this evening. So like, take whatever I say with a pinch of salt. Or I'll be like, oh, my period's due in 4 days, so take this with a pinch of salt. Try and always now give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and that's really helped me. So things like road rage, I can feel that really hard if someone cuts me up. But now, as soon as someone cuts me up, I say to myself, they could be lost. Or I say to myself, do you know what's really weird? I say to myself, like, I remember when I was driving to something sad, a few months ago, I thought, oh my god, no one else in any of these other cars knows I'm driving to this sad thing. And so now I always picture that. I don't know what that person in that car's going through. Same when I argue with people, I think, oh, they're probably talking to me like that because they've been through this or whatever. Giving other people the benefit of the doubt does normally stop your brain from going to saying that worst thing that you could say, and you normally look back and you're like, I'm so pleased I didn't do that. I want to get a diagnosis for anxiety, but I'm too scared to speak to a doctor. Any advice? I'd rehearse it. So I used to do this when I quit jobs or when I was going to the doctors. I'd write out a script and I'd take the script with me with bullet points because it's hard to read a big piece of text when you're anxious. And as soon as I get into the doctors, I'd say, I'm really sorry, but I'm feeling quite anxious. I normally need to do a cry. So what I'd normally do is sit down, have a little cry, say, sorry, I'm not feeling really upset right now. I just cry when I'm overstimulated or I'm overwhelmed, and then I read my script out. Or go with someone that knows you very well, like go with your best friend, or go with your mum or dad, or go with your partner, because they can speak a bit more logically for you. That is not a sign of weakness. That is you just making the adjustments you need to get the help that you need. How do you manage stress with ADHD? A big fucking cry, and honest with myself with what I can achieve. And I also really go through the things I have achieved. I've worked very hard to be on my side. I think a lot of people with ADHD, we spent so long like not being able to do what our like neurotypical peers can do, but I really have focused on being on my team. Like, I do think I'm quite good at my job. I do think I'm quite nice. I am very like, I'm pretty like not fazed about what I look like. Like, I've realised now that whether I'm fit or not really isn't very important. And I think weirdly, like being on my own team has meant that when I do feel stressed about things, I kind of believe in myself that I'll be able to solve it. I love that this headband's getting further and further back. My forehead is growing as this video is going on. Maybe it's all my wise words. So I think really focusing on how you can be on your team more will help you with those things. And do I take any supplements? No, but I really think I should. So if you've got any suggestions of any supplements I should try, I would love to do that. Okay, that's all my questions. Sorry if that video was really long and boring. I hope it was helpful. And if you've got any questions, I'll answer them in the comments. And if you wanted me to do another Q&A, I will. But yeah, thanks for joining me on my little Saturday afternoon slumber. I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye!